What's up? My name is Max Sinclair. I'm here again
Wow, good to see you.
to answer more marketing questions that you might have.
You said that we could come to you if we had any questions.
One of them being, which I get all the time, is should I focus on the international market or should I focus on my home country when I'm building up my business? This is normally for companies that are in the earlier stages. And so they're trying to decide where they should be spending their marketing spend, especially on things like Google ads and LinkedIn ads, for example, where it's very important, you make a decision when you're setting up any campaign to set, US or UK and US, whichever way around you are, or potentially the entire rest of the world. So I'm going to cover this. I work within my agency. We work with countless different businesses from the US and from the UK and from other parts of the world. And so this question comes up a lot. I'm going to cover some of the positives of international. I'm going to look at 3 more positives of the home country approach. And then I'm going to take kind of a view, give you my view on it. So what do I really think is most commonly the right choice for you as a business? So stick around to the end to hear that part. So let's start with the positives of international. So the first one is really obvious that I'm sure you think about, and it's the tempting one that pulls everybody this way. More customers, there's more people. So if I was a UK business, for example, I'm based in London, and I was only going to target Londoners, there is like roughly 7 or 8 million of us, so still quite a good number. But realistically, only 7 or 8 million, if I'm selling some particular B2B service offering that's focused at marketing directors, for example, within London, marketing directors only, that's actually a relatively small group of people. Whereas say the UK, obviously that's significantly more. But if I include the US, that's dramatically more. Like the US is, I don't even know, it's like 5 times or 6 times the population of the UK. I don't even know. There's a lot more Americans than there is Brits. There's a lot more people spelling the word colour without the U than there is with. So that's one of the really obvious first positives of internationalization. More people, more opportunity ultimately to scale. Number 2 is there's more natural demand in a country other than yours potentially. So this might not be the case, but let's say, for example, you're selling, I'm going to try and think of a really cliche stereotype answer here. Let's say you're selling tea. You're selling the best tea in the world. And but you're based in America. You just love tea. You're based in America. You absolutely love tea. So what you're going to do though is you're going to start selling this in the US, but you have a problem. Americans don't actually have as much of a deep passion for tea. They prefer coffee. America is a coffee country. So you maybe actually, when you go international, you start selling in the UK as well. And of course, we love our tea. This is a stereotype which exists and it's very true. I personally am a coffee guy. I stand with the coffee side. And ultimately, though, the country does love tea. So maybe when you start to sell your product internationally, you see way better return on investments from the UK market. And so if you go international early, you can discover these opportunities earlier. Number 3, arguably, it's lower risk to go international because you're really hedging your bets. So let's say, for example, I'm selling in the US and the UK. Let's say Trump makes a terrible decision and the US economy falls into a horrible downward turn, or insert some other kind of left-wing or right-wing perspective instead to make everybody balance in this video. Or let's say the UK Brexit finally destroys us. So either way, in whatever situation, if you're already international, you're a little bit safer because ultimately if you're getting, 50% of your sales from the US, 50% from the UK, for example, then you're only going to have 50% of your sales damaged by some kind of international event. And also, if something really good happens in one of those 2 markets, you get that benefit for half of your sales and you don't miss out on that. So there's more customers. Arguably, you might find some better demand somewhere else. And it's arguably as well lower risk. So those are the 3 positives of international. So what about the 3 positives of home country? Number 1, it's a much tighter niche. So this is the most important one. It's when you're really doing any form of marketing, you're trying to focus in on a pain point of your customer, a problem that you're trying to solve with your service. And so if you are only focusing on one country, it's easier to be more specific with that problem. So if I'm focused on, say, only the US or only, say, a state within the US. It's much simpler to focus on the problem of that type of person. Like again, let's say London, for example, is my hometown. So I might be trying to focus on problems that marketing directors have in, I don't know, in finance or something. So I can have these kind of interesting nuances where I talk about the city, like London City is famous for its finance sector. So maybe there's some interesting conversations I can have around that. So if I'm more specific and more tailored, and I only focus on my home country, then I can be more precise and targeted with it, which is ultimately going to give you better returns. Number two, it's your home ground. This is another really obvious one. So if I'm, for example, a UK business, maybe it would be right for me to only focus on the UK because it's my home country. I know it better than anywhere else. Like, I don't know the US arguably as well as I do the UK. Like, I've spent time in the US. I worked with many American companies. We work with more American companies than we do the UK actually. But even so, arguably, especially for some other industries which are less international, marketing is quite international, you know your home country better. So you're going to do a better job likely at delivering that service for them. Number three, while this is really a smaller one nowadays because of how globalized the world is nowadays, there are barriers to internationalization. So even us, even as a marketing agency, which is a completely digital service and really you can do it from pretty much anywhere in the world for pretty much anyone in the world. Like, we work with companies in Asia, Australasia, in Australia, for example, and do deliver great returns for them. But so there is barriers. So for us, for example, showing currencies on our website, how do we take payments? These things are solved, but there is still a kind of small barriers to delivering them. And if you're not a digital service, obviously, then those can be dramatically bigger. So if you're like a product business, there's way more obviously going to be big barriers to entry, like just shipping itself. But for most B2B businesses, this is particularly, I think globalization has occurred best for B2B businesses because most often it's very often like transactional services. We work with companies that are like, say, waste management, though, for example, helping companies go to recycling. They would struggle to just kind of, start up in America, for example, overnight. So those are my three positives for home country. So much tighter targeting into your niche. It's your home ground, so you know it really well. And ultimately, there are still some barriers to internationalization. So what is my take? Here's the hot take on this. The first thing I'd say is that you want to think about is if your service is particularly niche with a kind of a small market anyway, then international is probably the right way to head or it's more likely going to be the right way to head because let's say, for example, you're super niche. You're like, I only want to do SEO for dentists. So this means that, or let's say not just that, SEO for dentists who are straightening your teeth in the dentistry world. I'm trying to think of a really randomly tight, small niche. So this is a really small niche already. And let's say it only works if you speak to like really big dentistries that have like a marketing manager or something. This is so tight that it's quite difficult probably to be able to find enough customers even in your home country. So going international earlier would make sense. Another reason why international would really make sense is if you really have got those very low barriers to entry. So again, if you just serve like us, for example, we help people do marketing, B2B businesses that are making a positive impact on the world. This is extremely international. So like I can run a Google Ads campaign for someone in the US and the UK or in Australia, and the systems around Google Ads itself is what is most important. So I'm able to do that for pretty much any country in the world. So those are some of the reasons why I might suggest it makes sense to go international earlier. So for example, us as a business, we'd work with the UK and the US. The US we do more business with, even though we are a UK-based business. Although I would say more cases than not, actually staying with your home country first and being a little bit more focused wins in my eyes, ultimately because of that tighter niche. So most businesses, it's better to be tighter into your niche. Most businesses go too big rather than too small. Their market is too big rather than too small. They're not tight enough within a particular kind of small niche, which is really your kind of big competitive advantage over the big players within your industry. So you're kind of missing out on one of the biggest strengths of being a startup if you don't follow that. Hopefully this has helped. I wish you luck with this decision. It's not an easy one to make. I've made the mistake of going the wrong way with this before with my previous business, Eco Companion. I'll do another video about this. Actually, I'll link it here. I did one about common mistakes I made, some of the most painful mistakes I made. I'll link that here. If this did help you, please do subscribe. I really, really enjoy it when I see people subscribe to this channel, which is a very small, young channel, obviously. Hit the like button. And if there's any founders watching this, I'd love to hear what businesses you're running, so I can try and tailor these videos in the future towards the kind of businesses that the people are running who are watching these videos. Yeah, and otherwise I wish you luck implementing this, and I hope your business thrives as the year finishes off.